Imagine staring at the past, present, and future on your screen simultaneously. This isn't just a visual gimmick. It is the entire foundation of reality here. You literally walk through time zones mapped directly onto the physical space of the world. In combat, you can shove enemies forward into the future to watch their armor rust, or drag them back into the past when they were much weaker. You are weaponizing the timeline itself to solve spatial puzzles and crush bosses. It completely breaks your brain in the best way possible. But if you think juggling 3 timelines is a headache, wait until you have to shoot your own ghost in 4 dimensions.
A shooter where your biggest enemy and your greatest ally is your own past self. Welcome to a 25-second time loop where strategy violently collides with space-time. Every action you tape is recorded, and then the timeline resets. You layer your moves over previous loops, essentially creating physical echoes of yourself that exist in the exact same spatial arena. You can literally jump in front of a bullet meant for your past self, altering the future in real time. It is 4-dimensional chess with guns, bending the fabric of causality until the match ends. Yet outsmarting yourself is nothing compared to surviving a matrix where time only breathes when you do.
Time is frozen, shattered, and entirely dependent on your physical movement. If you stop walking, the universe stops ticking. This is the purest distillation of space-time manipulation you can play. Bullets hang in the air like frozen raindrops while you casually step through the warped space between them. You aren't just dodging attacks, you are manipulating the flow of Chronos by inching your physical body forward. The geometry of the room becomes a playground of temporal stasis where you control the speed of reality. Freezing a bullet is cool, but what happens when you're trapped in a tiny room with a clock that refuses to tick forward?
12 minutes. That is all the time you have before the loop violently snaps back to the beginning. You are confined to a claustrophobic apartment where physical space is severely limited, forcing you to hyper-focus on the timeline. Every mistake resets the clock, making you memorize the exact temporal rhythm of your surroundings. You use knowledge from dead futures to manipulate the present space, placing objects exactly where they need to be before reality resets. It is a terrifying, intimate lesson in causality. Escaping a tiny apartment loop is brutal, but imagine slicing through dilated time at Mach speed.
Reality slows to an absolute crawl while you warp through physical space like a cybernetic god. You are constantly bending the physics of speed and time to your will. Using your sensory boost, you dilate the present moment, hanging mid-air to calculate the exact trajectory of incoming fire. Then you dash, snapping the spatial continuum to instantly appear behind your target. It feels less like traditional combat and more like aggressively editing the timeline of a fight to ensure you always win. Slashing through slow motion is a rush, but what if the emotional trauma of repeating the same temporal cycle literally drives you insane?
Being stuck in a time loop sounds like a fun adventure until you actually remember every single failed timeline. You are trapped in an endless cycle where the spatial layout of the dungeon never changes, but the burden of time gets heavier. You carry the memories of every loop, weaponizing your knowledge of the future to skip puzzles and predict enemy attacks. But the sheer weight of repeating the exact same temporal actions starts tearing at the fabric of your sanity, making time like an absolute curse. Knowing the future is painful, but physically tearing a hole into a parallel dimension is a whole different level of chaos.
Why try to fix a broken timeline when you can just physically rip your way into an alternate universe? You gain the power to literally shift between 2 parallel realities, breaking the spatial rules of your environment. If a door is locked in one timeline, you just warp through a temporal rift into the other dimension where it happens to be open. You are existing in 2 versions of physical space simultaneously, using the echoes of a different timeline to manipulate the world around you. Shifting dimensions is a neat trick, but it doesn't compare to injecting precognition directly into your bloodstream to cheat death.
You aren't just reacting to attacks. You are peering into the immediate future and rewinding space-time until your run is flawless. Every single level is a premonition. When you die, time violently rewinds, snapping you back to the start of the spatial corridor to try again. You can slow the chronal flow to deflect bullets, warping your perception of reality to become an untouchable blur. The narrative itself glitches and fragments, reflecting how severely you are fracturing the space-time continuum just to survive. Rewinding your own death is crazy, though. Trying to survive an alien world that physically rearranges its geometry every time your heart stops will truly break you.
Die, wake up and watch the very fabric of the world rearrange itself. This alien planet refuses to let time move in a straight line. You're stuck in a horrific temporal loop where the physical space is never the same twice. Forests, ruins, and alien architectures shift organically with every reset. You aren't just fighting monsters. You are battling the spatial anomalies of a world that resets its own physical existence every time your heart stops. It is a masterpiece of temporal isolation. Surviving an ever-changing planet is exhausting, however. Turning a time loop into a perfectly synchronized assassination puzzle requires absolute mastery over the clock.
A single day, a massive island, and 8 targets to kill before the timeline resets at midnight. You are the ultimate temporal detective, mapping out the physical locations of your targets across 4 different times of day. You manipulate cause and effect. Doing something in the morning spatially alters a building in the evening. You have to weave through the continuum, learning the exact rhythm of the loop to line up the perfect day where space and time align for a massive blip-bath. Breaking a loop with bullets is one way to do it. Navigating a shattered dimension where ancient mountains freeze inside a temporal anomaly is an entirely different beast.
Mount Kof isn't just cursed. Its entire space-time continuum has been completely shattered into jagged pieces. You explore a sprawling map where time literally flows backward in some rooms and is completely frozen in others. You leave behind temporal shadows, physical echoes of your past self in space that you can snap back to at any moment to dodge attacks or solve puzzles. The fabric of reality is so broken, you can visually see the glowing cracks in the timeline holding the architecture together. Warping through ancient ruins is epic. Now, step into a dimension where human thoughts physically alter the geometric space of the room. Reality isn't fixed here. The physical world around you shifts, loops, and rewrites itself based on a manuscript. You step into the dark place, a realm where the strict rules of space and time have completely collapsed. Corridors loop infinitely, and changing a plot point on your storyboard instantly warps the physical architecture of your environment. You are navigating overlapping dimensions, slipping through rifts in reality where the past, present, and fiction blur into one terrifying spatial anomaly. Altering reality with words is terrifying. Soon enough, you'll be exploring a brutalist skyscraper that actively defies every known law of physics. The oldest house is a building that exists outside the normal flow of time and completely ignores the laws of spatial geometry. This isn't just an office building, it is a shifting, living anomaly. Corridors stretch into infinity, rooms rearrange themselves while you aren't looking, and dimensional rifts bleed into the physical space. You navigate through absolute temporal chaos, floating through areas where gravity and time have simply stopped working. It is the most breathtaking representation of a broken continuum in gaming. Defying gravity indoors is mind-bending. Try physically grabbing an object and forcing it to travel backward through its own timeline. The recall ability isn't just a magic trick. It is the raw power to command an object's personal history. You literally target physical matter and force it to rewind its spatial journey through time. A boulder falls from the sky. You lock onto it, reverse its temporal flow, and ride it back up through the atmosphere. The way you manipulate the continuum to solve physics puzzles and bypass massive gaps in the world is nothing short of revolutionary. You are bending cause and effect to your absolute will. Reversing a rock's timeline is genius. Just picture waking up next to a campfire, fully aware the entire solar system will be incinerated in exactly 22 minutes. The sun goes supernova. You die. You wake up at the campfire. You have exactly 22 minutes to figure out why. This is the undisputed king of space-time manipulation. The entire solar system is a giant ticking clockwork puzzle governed by relentless physical laws. Planets crumble, sand physically transfers between worlds, and black holes warp your trajectory through the vacuum of space, all happening in real time. You must master the spatial layout of the cosmos and the strict timeline of its destruction. There are no upgrades, only your actual memories of previous loops, allowing you to manipulate the continuum and uncover the universe's greatest secret. You finally decipher the quantum mechanics of this doomed galaxy. Yet as the music swells and the sun collapses one last time, you are left wondering if the space-time continuum was ever meant to be saved.